okay? They know about the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan Buddhists. They know about the evangelical Christians and the Catholics. They know the gulag that Xi and Washi Shan run as a surveillance state on their own people. There's not a finer group of people in the world than the Chinese people. 1.4 billion people, 90 million members of the Communist Party. The 1.3 whatever billion don't own any property, no land. They own no stock. They own no assets. It's a totalitarian dictatorship as bad or worse as anything we saw in the 1930s. And Davos man knows that. So why is this guy held up as an all-conquering hero? You know why? Money. That's what they worship at Davos, money. They have zero moral authority to dictate to populists and nationalists and sovereignty anything. Europe leads in this populist nationalist revolt. This is a hotbed. Europe's a hotbed for this populist nationalist, and I'm learning every day. The party at Davos loves democracy until it starts going against them. And here's what's so stunning. These elections are not even close now. The rejection of the party at Davos in Italy is 2/3 of the vote. I've been a populist at heart, and I'm dedicated to this populist movement. The last 10 years, I've dedicated to helping build this populist movement. So I'm a populist and I'm a nationalist, and wherever I can either observe or give people some advice, I'll be there in forums. Nationalist message, which focuses on workers and focuses on citizens and focuses on their betterment. Donald Trump's engagement. So as the TPP nations, two questions. Who's more engaged now in solving the solution in the Northwest Pacific? And as China has built 7 stationary aircraft carriers in the South China Sea during Obama's pivot to Asia.
I think, Steve Bannon, that you've done in the last year and a half that you're ashamed of?
Oh, absolutely not. I'm actually quite proud of what we've done and what we've accomplished. And I hope to accomplish more in the future. So
no regrets?
Not zero. Not a regret in the world.
It shouldn't be raising its head today. That's the problem. The problem is that the elites in this world, the capital markets guys from Frankfurt, the City of London, Wall Street, the international corporations, they've been running this scam for 20 years, financing and providing the technology to a radical cadre of the CCP that's built up this kind of Frankenstein monster that's essentially gutted the working class people throughout the world. Brexit and 2016 are inextricably linked. For the last 20 years, the most significant story was the radicalization of the Chinese Communist Party to suppress their own people, the noble and decent people of the People's Republic of China, and turn it basically into slave labor for the West so they can make goods for the corporatists at higher margins and sell it back to the unemployed and underemployed in the West. That day is over. Which saw President Trump and others, we've now engaged in what we understand is an economic war against the industrial democracies and an economic war against working class people. And that war is by the radical cadre of the CCP, by Wall Street, by the City of London, and by the international corporations. And that is over. I think where you don't allow it to have concentration of power, I think where you don't allow it to get out of control, where you have this kind of permanent political class and elite, and kind of this merger between state capitalism and government. And this is what you're seeing in China today, right? This is what you're seeing in various aspects of the West. That has to be broken up. Entrepreneurial capitalism, where the little guy gets a shot, is the best form of capitalism. You do that and you've opened up the possibility of true freedom for working class people. You know, this is a world revolution going on right now. And you have to see reality of what reality is. And no, I don't think in Washington, President Trump in the West, I think you're starting to see devolve a very thought through plan. And the United States does not want to be an imperial power. We're not looking for protectors. Working class people in the United States are looking for allies in the West, in the Judeo-Christian West, in the Middle East, in Central Asia, in China. The greatest ally we're ever going to have is old 100 names, the working class people in China. Thanks. Very briefly about North Korea, and this shows you the haplessness of the European Union. It was the Clinton, the Bush, the Obama administration, and the haplessness, complete, total haplessness of the EU and all the happy talk that allowed North Korea to get the ballistic missile technology and all the nuclear warhead technology they got, okay, for 30 years, right? All this great negotiating power, all this rule of law, all this great stuff. You had a criminal junta putting together a nuclear plant. North Korea is a vassal state of Beijing. And that is President Trump is handling these negotiations. We've made more progress with North Korea and confronting these issues and with Beijing in President Trump's tenure than the 30 years of haplessness between the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and our partners in the EU. They're the ones that created and allowed North Korea to be created and be the great threat to Japan and South Korea it is. And I happen to believe not Iran and not Venezuela and not the North German plane with the Russians. The single most dangerous, and not North Korea and the Northwest Pacific, the single most dangerous place in the world, and the place where the next war could start unless we're very wise about how we handle it, is the South China Sea. And this is the provocation of the expansionist power of this radical cadre of the CCP that built those islands and had the Democratic Party and Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and that whole gang had the Munich of the 21st century when they allowed those stationary islands, which are basically aircraft carriers, to be built. This is the central issue, I think, of freedom in the world, the free navigation of the South China Sea and the dismantling of those islands that the Chinese Communist Party, the radical cadre of Yuan Shishan and Xi have put down there to make the South China Sea an eternal sea of the radical cadre, the CCP. And this is where the European Union looked the other way. This is where Obama looked the other way. This is where Joe Biden looked the other way. This is where the Democratic Party looked the other way. This is not where Donald Trump, he is not looking the other way. The other day we sent a destroyer within 10 miles of one of those islands. I'd be very cautious, particularly in the One Belt, One Road and other aspects. All China's doing is they're taking the British East India Company model of predatory capitalism and they're running it in reverse. Don't think that any of these projects are for your betterment. They're not. And this is not about the Chinese people. The Chinese people are under the worst suppression in the world of any nation on earth by this radical cadre, the CCP. And this is not about the containment of China. This is not about the Chinese people. This is about a business model of state capitalism financed by the West, technology provided by the West, that's for profit, that's allowed this to happen. That is what Trump, and these are not a few simple things that can happen. This is not a trade war. This is an economic war. They've been running this economic war for 20 years. This deal is a truce. This deal is an armistice. It's not about are they going to buy more soybeans. We already know that's why all the liars on Wall Street that said the stock market was going to implode, the economy was going to implode, all the Democrats, everything's going to happen. Nothing happened on Wall Street. You know why? The Chinese have very few bullets in the chamber. They're looking down an economic shotgun from the United States. We cut them off on technology. We can put ZTE and Huawei out of business in 30 days. 30 days. They're looking down an economic shotgun. Because the Thucydides trap crowd in the West, in Berlin, in Paris, in London, in Washington, D.C., on Wall Street, they all said the West is in decline. And that is a fundamental lie.
Les États-Unis ont besoin d'une Europe forte. Les États-Unis ont besoin d'États-nations européens forts. Le mouvement souverainiste va renforcer l'Europe parce que vous avez des États-nations qui sont plus forts, les citoyens auront plus de moyens et actuellement leurs moyens sont complètement confisqués par Bruxelles au détriment des petites gens. Vous avez un écart économique croissant, un écart politique croissant entre les élites et le reste de la société. Salvini, Orban et Le Pen ne veulent pas détruire l'Union européenne, ils veulent la réformer de l'intérieur, en faire une union d'États-nations indépendants. Et c'est ça qui va renforcer l'Europe. Ce qui ne sera pas renforcé, ce sera la bureaucratie.
Alors vous allez me dire si vous êtes d'accord.
This was to put into Chinese law. So they couldn't sit there later on and retrade the president, retrade the United States. The way you do this is you do it. You cut off the technology, you stop the forced technology transfers. You saw this NPR piece where the companies that had all the technology ripped off didn't want to raise their heads, they were afraid of retaliation. You stop the retaliation, and most importantly, you get the Wall Street hedge funds and the money managers and the investment banks, and you cut off the capital. If you cut off the capital, you stop them stealing the technology, you stop the forced technology transfers, you stop them from exporting deflation and overcapacity by these subsidies to state-owned industries. If you just make them play by the rules they've already agreed to, okay, it will be a transitional period, but on the other side, China will actually join us as an industrial power. We're not sitting there. This is not against the Chinese people. I have a great affinity. I've lived there. I've owned businesses there. This is about this radical cadre of the CCP that has an unsustainable business model. It's incumbent upon us. We have all the cards. We have all the cards. And now that's what Donald Trump's showing immense leadership in trying to do this. It'd be very easy for him to sign some trade deal where they bought more soybeans and have the cheerleaders on Wall Street say, this is terrific. Have the stock market go up for a moment, right? But what he's doing is looking at the long term. What people criticize him about, he doesn't have a strategic plan. He's got it. I think Tom Friedman understands it. He just wrote about it. This cuts to the core of what the world economy is going to be, and it plays to working class people, whether those people are in Germany, England, or in the United States. The system that China has, particularly the slave labor they have now in the Chinese population, this is about this radical cadre in the CCP. You cannot possibly have this totalitarian surveillance state. It can't exist. You have the industrial democracies, okay? What we're trying to do, and I think what Trump is trying to do very thoughtfully, is to bring them into really a world system, a system that Tom Friedman and others have talked about. The problem is we allowed the City of London, Wall Street, and the corporatists to create a system that worked for them and didn't work for working class people, whether those people are in Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin or here in Germany. This is why Donald Trump's president of the United States, it was as J.D. Vance points out, it's the sending of the factories to China, the loss of the jobs and the importation of the opioids because of this crisis of kind of angst that has developed this crisis in the upper Midwest. That's why Joe Biden campaigned in Pittsburgh. People understand that this is where the presidential election of 20 is going to be decided. It is where the presidential election in 16 was decided. This can be a win. The Chinese business model cannot continue, and it won't continue. You can stop it by stopping the forced technology transfers, allowing the intellectual property and industrial espionage to stop, and stop financing it. We have full capabilities in the West to stop this right now and help China evolve into a real industrial power along rules, the rule of law, and everything that they've agreed to for 20 years that they haven't played by. Not just not played by, done the exact opposite. Well, I think it turned around. I think you saw all the globalists at that time. You had a huge emphasis. Remember, that's when we didn't get a chance to build the wall. That's when we hadn't gotten our trade. We hadn't taken on China. If you look in the summer of 17, it was kind of the doldrums. And by the way, you should read, I think, the book by Woodward. I actually tendered my resignation to General Kelly on August 7th and then left 10 days later. But that was the doldrums. President Trump is now full on. He's building the wall. He's down there fighting the courts. He's doing a fantastic job in engaging on this economic war that China's been running on the United States. He's engaging the radical, Communist Party in China. President Xi and Wang Qishan, these radicals that are taking control of China. You saw in this great effort he had in Japan over the last couple of days, which the mainstream media is focused on his Twitter feed. People in Asia are focused on how he has bound together the Japanese and the American military and the Navy and sent a very strong signal to the countries around the South China Sea that the Americans and the Japanese are going to work together to make sure those sea lanes are free. This was very couple of days to the president. So I think the president's on fire right now with this program back. He's completing the promises he made to the American people. That's why the economy's doing well, and I think that's why he's seen an America First national security policy that people understand.
尊敬的战友们好啊！今天是6月2号，欢迎我们的英雄班农先生回到了我们喜马拉雅大使馆。这个我答应我们的战友们要拥抱我们的班农先生啊！这个我们一定有一天和班农先生举起这双手啊，改变世界的手啊！现在。班农先生再次的创造了神奇。那么，亲爱的战友们，非常的高兴啊！今天是和上一次的班农先生直播，不过也没有超过是3星期的时间，但是世界有了巨大的变化。大家知道上一次直播的时候，班农先生说他将去欧洲啊，他将代表法治基金，代表着很多战友的希望，去到欧洲各国，去和他们讲解为什么反共和共产党一系列的犯罪的真相，在经济、政治、军事、文化、宗教各个领域对世界的侵略。我想那一天的时候，很多战友并没有认真的去听这句话。可是大家知道，这几十天来发生了巨大的事情。大家都通过这个 CNBC 福克斯电视台、喀萨斯的演讲、意大利演讲、法国的大选、欧洲议会的选举、英国的脱欧包括这个福克斯 Tracy 和中国的国际电视台刘鑫的演讲。更重要的是，班农先生在对中国电视台。环球时报、拉什的时报被以国家力量进行侮辱、攻击。
In fact, that the Chinese are using the media to insult Mr. Bannon.
后来呢，这个大家又看到香港的签单法
we can see that Hong Kong's
引起了世界的震撼。
And brought a lot of shocks to the world.
也就是班农先生在这世界讲述
in fact, while that he is
共
speaking
产党
in
的
the
威胁
world,
的时候，
talking about the threats of the CCP presented to the world,
这些威胁正在发生中。
that all of these things happening.
毫不夸张地说，
So
班农
I
先
can
生
tell you that Mr.
震撼
Bannon
了世界。
shocked the world.
那么今天我们就请班农先生简单给大家先问候一下，讲讲这一段的欧洲之行。
his thought while that he's touring Europe. Mr. Bannon, time to you. 谢谢各位，是文贵先生。谢谢呢。他制作的这个的非常好看的视频，不仅仅是文贵，还有是整个的团队，还有是整个的这个的视频的制作的团队，他真的可以呢更比这些的 BBC 啊、CNN 呢他们制作的视频更好。那么非常高质量的一个的创作。那其实我的这个欧洲的旅游，去了挪威，去了柏林，去了法国，还有喀萨斯坦，我也去过罗马、意大利，还有是瑞士。但是这是第一次，我发现是人们第一次真正的了解到呢，是我们必须要是照顾是中国的老百姓。我们现在是希望是为中国的老百姓提供是自由。而且呢，他们是不断的被这个的压迫，而且是被这个中国的集权的政权来的压迫。那我全是在进行这个的演讲的时候，去到巴黎呀、奥斯陆啊，还有是这个的法国呀，去喀萨斯坦啊、挪威呀，去的不同的首都国家的首都，大家刚刚开始是发现是中国的老百姓是被这个的职权的政府少数的极端的领 领导来到是压迫，所以呢，这一些被压迫的人都是我们的白家老百姓，所以我们把真相告诉他们。然后是呢，对于欧洲人啊，还有是中亚的人们，以及是美国的人，他们跟美国人一样，刚刚是开始就是醒过来。那么然后呢，这个整个的社会的情绪是有所的转移。那么而且呢，大家老百姓、中产的阶级的人，在中国的人将是可以观察得到一个巨大的国际上的情势的改变，而且是王岐山跟一些的中国共产党的集权的少数的人，他们将是会看到世界对他们的这个的反对的情绪。
这个班农先生啊
Mr. Bannon，
他在后面，大家看到
Behind
写
Mr.
的什么
Bannon,
吗？
you can see what's the characters.
献给2020年
give
6月4号
it is a
新中国的
memorial.
建国纪念。
2020, June 4th, New China Incorporation, and that is Steve Bannon and Moscow and Kalbas.
这是班农先
So this is a
生没有认真的了解这幅画的意义。
Perhaps that Mr. Bannon did not know the
这幅画
painting.
的意义太
The
大，
meaning of
班农
this
先生你要认真
painting
看一
is
下。
actually quite
你的
great. I
背后
invite you to look at
的
it
山川
in details.
和这个
So you see there are
河
some
流
valleys and
是
also
中
the
国人
river.
的美
These
好的
are the
对中
great
国三
picture
水的理解。
to the Chinese
这幅画
people.
太棒了，
Because this picture is a very beautiful
这
picture
是献给
painting.
班农先生的
This is
啊，
actually I give it to you,
献给卡尔巴斯
and,
先生的。
and then give it to Mr. Kalbas.
明年6月
It
4
is
号，
to
我会
depict
建立
the
新中国，
beautiful
干掉共产
picture
党。
of China, and then so that next year, then we're going to take over from the Communist Party.
这幅画很值钱啊，很值
This
钱。
is actually a very valuable painting.
但是班农先生现在
But Mr.
从过
Bannon,
去啊，演讲
from
不
the past to
不收
now,
钱，现在
From
要
the
花
past, his
50万美元
speeches
让他讲
actually
一
is
次。
free, but now there's $500,000 to ask him to speak one time.
所以说，我现在跟
And
他谈
so I
50%
must talk
分
to
给法治
him
基金。
so that he must actually make the 50% donation to the Rob.I Foundation.
我这样，你看看
So today-
大家可能都看到了啊，
Perhaps you can
整个的
also
现在
see
的
that
留言全是爱班农
all
先
of
生，
these
全都是爱，
messages were
全都是爱
actually
人。
to express the love
你
to
看，
Mr.
全部
Bannon.
都是爱班农
You
先
see,
生，全
that
部
they
都是爱
all
班
tell
农
you
先
that
生，
they love you, Mr. Bannon.
全部是爱班农，感谢班农先生的。
And then thank you,
因
Mr.
为
Bannon.
你
It
看，
is because
这
you
是
can
不
see
可思
that
议的啊！
it is unbelievable.
我
It's
相信
incredible. I
在
believe that
美国和中国
in
的
the
历史
US,
上，
in Chinese history,
得到中国人这么多人的
that
喜欢和爱护的，他
not
是唯
that
一的一个人，
many people can gain so much love from the Chinese people. You are the only one.
这是唯一一个人。
You are
啊
the only one that garners so much love and
Look,
adoration.
it's
这
a
个
great, it's a great honor
是很荣幸，让我感觉非常的
to
荣
be
幸
the。chair of the Rule of Law
能
Fund.
够成为
Because I
是
don't
法
think
治基
there's
金
any
会的
doubt,
主席。
as I go throughout the
毫
world,
无
we
疑
talk
问，
about rule
我
of law, we talk
到
about the
全
rule of
世
law for
界
the Chinese
谈
people.
到是中国的法治、法治基金，大家都可以看到呢，是中国的老百姓去到香港、去到台湾，而且他们去到是海外，他们都能够是非常成功。特别看到是中国的人在美国、在欧洲，特别也是在伦敦，他们都看到是中国人在法治的基础下，他们的繁荣、他们的成功，而且是他们是非常的勤奋。他们都可以从零开始把东西做出来，做的出色，做的成功。所以我非常的荣幸是担任是这个的主席，能够去到是欧洲来到演讲，特别去到这个的卡萨斯坦去进行演讲。那我非常是感谢我获得这个机会，而且是成为大家的这个法治基金的主席是一个的荣幸。那么而且我会继续的努力，而且会继续的为中国老百姓来到贡献我的一份力量。
我们现在呢，班农先生很多我们
Mr.
感激的话，
Bannon,
我们就不多
we
说了。
have
我
a
们
lot
现
of
在直奔
words
主
of
题啊。
appreciation. We're not going to
因
talk
为
about
今
it
天有
anymore.
几
So
百
we
万、
enter
上
into
千
our
万、
main theme.
上亿的
There are
人在
millions,
看到这
hundreds
个
of
直
million
播，
people
我们有
watching
很多
our
问题要问他
broadcasting. We have a
我
lot
就
of
直接
questions
开始问他一
presenting
系
to
列的
Mr.
问题，
Bannon.
好不
So
好？
I'm going to ask him a lot of questions.
这个咱们的战友啊，今天第一个问
So
题就要
my
问的非常
supporters,
重
the
要
first question
了。
is very
香港
important.
遣返法，
Hong Kong extradition law.
所有的在6月9号，香港市
In
民将走
9th
上
of
大
June,
街
people
在走
walk
上大街
on the street
抗议，
to express their protest.
我在2天前，
And
我录了
2
视
days
频报
ago,
告，
I
说
actually
香
recorded
港
a
签单法
video,
不是像
and
凯瑞琳说的，
it
是
is
中
not
共
just
中央给他
like
的指
it's
示，
talking
是他
about the
一个字一
extradition
个字由
law.
他写
It
的
is